The time by Caracris is 6 p.m. and this is CBX Business News. The business news headlines are brought to you by QMax Wealth Management, making more possible. Major infrastructure, new energy prospects, and global trade risks. Good evening and welcome to CBX Business News for Monday, August 3, 2026. I'm Rashel Moncrieffe. Thanks for joining us. Coming up, the Jamaican government is moving ahead with more than $700 million in water infrastructure investments, led by a planned $250 million expansion of the Hermitage Dam and an additional $462 million in major projects already underway. Also ahead, ExxonMobil says artificial intelligence has helped identify 4 new exploration prospects in Guyana's Stabroek Block, strengthening the company's long-term offshore growth outlook. And later, the United Nations warns that Gulf conflict is disrupting global trade, energy markets, and supply chains. Stay with us as we unpack these stories and more right after the break.
I started as a rebellious young man, terribly rebellious. I was a dropout of school, never went to college, and just amazing that I was able to develop in the operation and eventually lead the operation. So if there's anything that I think in my business life that has been just a reward, is our 2 sons.
Caribbean dreams, instant turmeric tea. What you put in is what you get out. What you put in is what you get out. Yeah. Build up your body, boost up your brain. Take on the world now. Say bye-bye pain. Caribbean dreams, instant turmeric tea. Be good to you. Caribbean dreams, instant turmeric tea. Distributed by Amalgamated Distributors Limited.
The local news is brought to you by Derrimon Trading, better from the start. The Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, Tease the Senses, and Pulse Investments. Welcome back to CBX Business News. We begin with major water infrastructure investments in Jamaica. The government says it is preparing an approximately $250 million project to rebuild and expand the Hermitage Dam as part of its long-term strategy to strengthen water security for Kingston and St. Andrew. Addressing a Ministry of Water, Environment and Climate Change press conference, Minister Matthew Samuda says a major investment in the dam is essential to provide a more reliable water supply for the corporate area.
There is no possibility of guaranteeing stable water supply in Kingston and St. Andrew without Hermitage, based on the hydrological flow of rivers in and around the parish. So that means the government has to make what you call a nation-building investment in rebuilding and expanding the Hermitage Dam. That has an initial assessment of a $250 million US dollar price tag.
He says engineering assessments have already been completed and the government expects construction to get underway early next year.
That project will be guided through NARA, which is why we took Ambassador Anderson to the facility to get him to understand exactly what was in place and what was the current situation there. And that is a project that we expect to get underway early next year. Engineering and initial engineering assessments have already been done. We're actively developing the project, and that will be a project that the ministry will work on with NARA to build water resilience for Kingston and St. Andrew.
Water, Environment and Climate Change, Matthew Samuda. As the government prepares to expand the Hermitage Dam, it says work is already underway on 3 major water infrastructure projects aimed at strengthening water security across the island. Addressing the same Ministry of Water, Environment and Climate Change press conference, Minister Matthew Samuda says the projects are designed to improve water supply, expand distribution networks, and build long-term resilience. He says the projects represent some of the government's largest investments in the water sector.
Now, to note, there are 3 major capital works projects that are already underway in Jamaica. 1, the Rio Cobra Water Treatment Plant, $92 million US. 2, Phase 1 of the Western Resilience Water Program, $170 million US, which will see pipelines run from Martha Brae all the way to Negril. That project has started and is in the construction phase. And anyone who is driving along the road in Mobay or certainly Lucy should see activity taking place. And 3, we have completed the engineering phase and the land acquisition phase associated with the Pedro Plains irrigation system, which will see some $200 million US spent over the next 3 years in building water resilience for the farmers in St. Elizabeth.
Samuda says the 3 projects represent a significant investment in modernizing the water sector, but added that much larger investments will be needed to meet Jamaica's long-term water demands.
Now, those are big numbers. But 3 years ago, myself and then Minister Nigel Clark, prior to his departure, engaged the World Bank water sector experts. And we had them come do a study in Jamaica to see really what was required for us to supply ourselves in a resilient and efficient manner on the potable water side and on the irrigation side. We also had them take a look of what was required for us to protect our water resources and our nearshore environment with appropriate wastewater management. The assessment was that Jamaica needs to invest $5 billion US. So though this year the government is investing $15 billion from the consolidated fund, you should be very clear that we still need to invest at a far greater rate.
Jamaica's Minister of Water, Environment and Climate Change, Matthew Samuda. Small businesses across Jamaica are set to benefit from enhanced digital support under a new partnership between Liberty Business and the Small Business Association of Jamaica, SBAJ. Under the agreement, eligible SBAJ members who subscribe to a qualifying Liberty Business broadband package will receive free installation and complimentary access to 3 digital services for 6 months. The offer includes a professional website and online store, customized business email, digital marketing tools, help desk support, secure cloud storage, and cybersecurity protection. The partnership will also deliver workshops, webinars, seminars, and training sessions to help small businesses adopt digital technologies, improve their operations, and strengthen their online presence. The initiative aims to reduce the cost of digital adoption for small enterprises, giving them greater access to technology that can improve efficiency, customer engagement, and competitiveness in an increasingly digital economy. And finally, Paramount Trading Jamaica Limited more than tripled its annual profit for the financial year ended May 31, 2026, despite recording a slight decline in revenue. The company reported a net profit of 99.1 million Jamaican dollars, up from 26.1 million the previous year, while operating profit rose to $215.9 million from $130.8 million. Revenue, however, eased to 1.69 billion Jamaican dollars compared with 1.72 billion a year earlier. The improved performance was also reflected in the company's cash generation, with net cash provided by operating activities surging to $313.1 million, more than double the $138.3 million recorded in the previous year. Paramount Trading also strengthened its balance sheet, with shareholders' equity rising to $1.12 billion, while long-term borrowings declined to $448.9 million from $533.1 million a year earlier. The results reflect a year of stronger profitability, improved cash generation, and lower debt, positioning the company on a firmer financial footing. We move to the latest updates from the JSE equities. In Monday's trading session, the JSE market activity resulted in the trading of 115 stocks, of which 44 advanced, 56 declined, and 15 traded firm. Leading the winners are Palace Amusement Company, Cygnus Credit Investments USD, ordinary shares, GUS Corporation ordinary shares, and Jetcon Corporation. While leading the losers are Consolidated Bakeries Jamaica, Kingston Wharves, Cygnus Credit Investments 10% preference shares Class H, and Productive Business Solution USD ordinary shares. The main index declined by 727.69 points to close at 373,284.61 points. The junior market index declined by 38.89 points to close at 2,937.81 points. It's time for the Market Education feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards. In today's Market Education feature, we're talking about yield curve risk. Yield curve risk is the possibility that changes in interest rates could reduce the value of fixed income investments such as bonds. The yield curve compares bond yields with their maturities and helps investors gauge interest rate expectations and broader economic conditions. Because bond prices and interest rates move in opposite directions, rising interest rates typically cause bond prices to fall, while declining rates generally push bond prices higher. Investors closely monitor changes in the yield curve, including steepening, flattening, and inversion, as these movements can signal shifts in economic conditions and market sentiment. To manage yield curve risk, investors may diversify bond maturities, adjust portfolio duration, or use hedging strategies to help reduce their exposure to interest rate changes. That was the Market Education feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards. And that's it for the local news segment. Please stay with us. The regional news is up next. The local news is brought to you by Derrimon Trading, better from the start. The Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, Tease the Senses, and Pulse Investments.
It's feeling so good right now. Feeling so good right now. Yeah, yeah. It's feeling so good right now.
Welcome back. And now for the regional business news. ExxonMobil says it has identified 4 new exploration prospects in Guyana's Stabroek Block using artificial intelligence, highlighting continued exploration potential in the country's offshore oil sector. Speaking during the company's second quarter 2026 earnings call on Friday, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer Darren Woods says ExxonMobil used artificial intelligence to analyze data from previous discoveries, drilling operations, and the block's subsurface geology, leading to the identification of 4 new exploration opportunities.
That we've really put a lot of effort into artificial intelligence and training models based on what we found already, all the drilling that we've done, the characterization of that subsurface, and have unleashed that in the rest of the block and have 4 new discovery opportunities above and beyond what we thought were opportunities. So we're optimistic there. Obviously a lot more work to do to confirm those, but I think our view is we're not done yet in Guyana, and we continue to see a really bright future there.
Woods says additional studies will be needed to determine whether the prospects contain commercially viable oil and gas reserves. He says the new exploration opportunities could create additional value not only for ExxonMobil but also for Guyana as the company continues to expand its offshore development program.
We have seen some new opportunities to explore that we hadn't previously identified. So I would tell you the tape hasn't run out on this play yet, and we're going to continue to evaluate that and see what we can get from it. But I mean, you can rest assured the organization is very focused on maximizing the value of that acreage for the benefit, obviously, of ExxonMobil, but more importantly for Guyana, the government of Guyana, the people of Guyana.
Meanwhile, ExxonMobil reported strong second quarter results despite disruptions to its operations caused by the conflict in the Middle East. Speaking during the 2026 second quarter earnings call, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer Darren Woods says ExxonMobil delivered $14.5 billion in earnings and $23.6 billion in cash flow from operations, while maintaining strong performance across its businesses. The company says upstream production outside the Middle East reached its highest level in more than 2 decades, while its energy product business posted record second quarter diesel production as global fuel supplies tightened. Chemical product margins also surged by roughly 180% compared with the previous quarter amid supply disruptions. ExxonMobil highlighted Guyana as a key driver of growth, with production from the Stabroek Block averaging about 900,000 barrels of oil per day during the quarter. The company also says its 5th floating production vessel remains on track to begin operations by the end of the year, while plans for additional developments continue to advance. ExxonMobil also reported more than $17 billion in free cash flow, a $7 billion reduction in net debt, and returned more than $9 billion to shareholders through dividends and share repurchases during the quarter. And finally, Crop Over is proving to be more than a cultural celebration, as the annual festival generates economic activity across Barbados, creating opportunities for businesses well beyond the tourism sector. Speaking during an interview with a CBX Business News correspondent in Barbados, Tourism and International Transport Minister Ian Gooding Edgehill says Crop Over stimulates economic activity across the island, with the annual festival creating opportunities for businesses across several industries.
As soon as you land in Barbados, you have to take a taxi. So it's from the taxi operators. It's people who are staying in all of our accommodations that we have to offer in Barbados. It's about the staff who have to serve them. It is about the events that you will attend and you will patronize, and that will also contribute to income for the artists. It's about the arts and craft that we have available that will have all those who are involved in arts and craft, the paintings that we have to offer, the attractions that we have to offer in Barbados. And it can go on and on, the restaurants as well. So it has a multiplier effect. So when we bring a visitor to Barbados for Crop Over, it has that multiplier effect that it crosses all sectors in Barbados. And that is why tourism remains a very significant part of our economic development activity.
That was the Tourism Minister of Barbados, Ian Gooding Edgehill. It's now time for news from the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 21 securities, of which 4 advanced, 8 declined, and 9 traded firm. Today's winners are A.S. Braddon & Sons Holdings, Trinidad and Tobago NGL, Republic Financial Holdings, and Guardian Holdings, while leading the losers are the West Indian Tobacco Company, Point Lisas Industrial Port Development Corporation, Endeavour Holdings, and Agostini Limited. Trading activity resulted in the following movements. The All TNT Index advanced by 1.62 points to close at 1,437.57. The Composite Index also advanced by 0.64 points to close at 1,009.33. The Cross-Listed Index declined by 0.06 points to close at 77.22. The SME Index declined by 0.90 points to close at 75.70. And we take a short break, but please do stay with us. The international news segment is up next.
Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited has been a part of Jamaica's manufacturing landscape for over 20 years. By crafting unique flavors and fragrances, we have become a part of your favorite household and food items such as beverages, ice cream, household cleaners, and much more. Known throughout the Caribbean for the highest quality, we continue to innovate with strong leadership, a dedicated team with integrity. We go the extra mile for our customers. Create the next taste sensation. Contact us at 876-923-5111 or visit our website, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn pages.
Welcome back. In international news, global trade and commodity markets are coming under increasing pressure as military escalation in the Gulf disrupts one of the world's most critical maritime trade routes. Speaking at a press briefing earlier today, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned that commercial traffic through the Strait of Hormuz has collapsed, triggering significant disruptions across global energy markets. The reduced flow of oil and other key commodities has contributed to rising prices for food and agricultural fertilizers, adding further strain to businesses and consumers worldwide.
Trade through the Strait of Hormuz has collapsed. Energy markets have been upended. Prices of food and key fertilizers have surged. Supply chains are buckling. Around the world, we see families struggling to put food on the table, farmers unable to afford basic inputs, and vulnerable countries pushed closer to the edge. The World Food Programme warns that as many as 45 million people could face acute food insecurity as a result. And rising prices and slowing growth threaten to push millions more back into poverty.
He says supply chains are beginning to buckle under pressure, raising concerns about the broader economic impact if the conflict continues, while citing the increased risk of climate change.
Supply chains disrupted and food prices rising. entire cities struggling to function. And while extreme heat is a global crisis, those who have done the least to fuel it are paying the highest price. Children, older persons, people with disability, outdoor workers, people living in informal settlements, and communities pushed to the margins. Extreme heat is widening inequalities, deepening hunger, weakening economies, and pushing development further out of reach.
That was UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Colombia's Davivienda manufacturing PMI eased to 52.7 in July 2026 from 53.7 in June, indicating another month of solid expansion in manufacturing activity. New orders continued to grow at a strong pace, although production increased only modestly, while finished goods declined for the fifth consecutive month. To replenish depleted stocks, manufacturers accelerated input purchases despite ongoing supply disruptions stemming from port congestion, supplier shortages, and traffic delays. Vendor delivery times continued to lengthen, although the deterioration was the least severe since February. Meanwhile, pre-production inventories rose for a second consecutive month as previously ordered materials were delivered. Employment increased as firms sought to meet demand and reduce outstanding workloads, with backlogs declining for the sixth straight month. Although input cost pressures remain elevated, inflation eased to a 6-month low, while output price inflation slowed to its weakest level of the year. Business confidence remained positive throughout the month. The S&P Global Mexico Manufacturing PMI remained unchanged at 51.3 in July 2026, indicating a second consecutive month of improving operating conditions. New orders increased at the fastest rate since November 2023, supported by stronger domestic demand, although export orders returned to contraction. Despite stronger demand, manufacturing output continued to decline, extending a downturn that has persisted for 2 years, largely due to weakness in the automotive and construction industries, as well as ongoing plant maintenance. Finished goods inventories decreased, while pre-production inventories also fell because of delays in supplier deliveries. Supplier performance deteriorated further amid shipping disruptions, material shortages, and the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. In response, manufacturers increased input purchases at the fastest pace in nearly 2.5 years. Input cost inflation remained elevated, driven by higher fuel, raw material, and transportation costs, along with the impact of tariffs. And that's it for the international segment of the newscast. The news recap is coming up on the other side of the break. And now to recap our top stories. In the local news, the Jamaican government plans a $250 million Hermitage Dam expansion. Regionally, ExxonMobil says it used artificial intelligence to uncover 4 new prospects in Guyana. And internationally, UN warns Gulf conflict threatens global trade. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Rashel Moncrieffe. Thanks for watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.
I'm Jared, sales trainer and LinkedIn coach, and you are watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.
Okay, I just sent the money. I'll WhatsApp you the tracking number.
Thanks, Daddy. I can't wait to buy that PS5.
Listen to me. Your birthday money is not just for spending. You remember what I told your mom?